They took my name off the wall like I never existed. 15 years gone in one afternoon. But 6 months later, my old company called me, not to apologize. They needed something only I could give them. And this time, I made them beg for it. Stay with me until the end, because what happened 6 months later changed everything. My name is Callum Reyes. For 15 years, I was the guy who kept Holbrook Logistics running. Not the CEO, not the guy whose name was on the building, just the guy who showed up at 5 in the morning when a shipment got stuck at the port and stayed till midnight when a client threatened to walk. I built the routing system we still used. I signed the lease on our first real warehouse outside Columbus, Ohio, back when we had 4 trucks and a dream. I missed my son Nate's 4th grade recital because a client in Charlotte was about to cancel a $2 million contract. I worked through the week of my father's funeral because I didn't trust anyone else to run our launch. My wife, Denise, used to joke that Holbrook was her husband's other marriage. She wasn't entirely joking. If you've ever given everything to a place that erased you the second you became inconvenient, this one's for you. Go ahead and hit subscribe now, because you're going to want to see how this ends. Around year 12, a new VP of strategy showed up, Trevor Ashcombe, MBA from back east, sharp suits, sharper opinions. First few months, I actually liked the guy. He'd stop by my office with 2 coffees, hand me one, and say, "Figured the guy who actually runs this place deserves better than the break room stuff." He praised me in an all-staff meeting once, stood up in front of 200 people and said, "None of what we're building happens without Callum Reyes." I remember feeling proud. I remember thinking, finally, somebody sees it. Looking back now, I think that was the whole plan. Get close enough to learn everything I knew, then use it. The shift was slow. A strategy session I used to run quietly moved to a time I wasn't told about. A project I'd led for 2 years, suddenly with additional stakeholders. I mentioned it to Elaine Cortland, our CEO, over lunch one day. She got quiet for a second, longer than normal, and said, "Just growing pains, Callum. You're still the backbone here." I believed her. I didn't know it then, but she'd already started quietly saving her own emails from certain meetings, printing things, keeping a folder in a drawer that had nothing to do with her actual job. She'll tell me later she didn't even know why she was doing it yet, just a feeling. Then came the Tuesday. Calendar invite. Quick sync, no agenda. I walked in smiling. Maybe this was the promotion Elaine had hinted at back in March. Trevor was already sitting there. Elaine, too. Someone from HR I barely recognized. "Callum, thanks for coming in." Elaine's voice gave it away before the words did. Role, consolidated. 15 years wrapped in one sentence out of a legal template. I looked at Trevor. "Was this your idea?" He didn't blink. "These decisions get made at the leadership level. I think it's best for everyone." Best for everyone, except the guy realizing his own strategy documents, the ones with his name buried in the file history with the exact documents used to replace him. They gave me the rest of the day to transition. I walked past the lobby, past the wall of founders, 9 years, my photo up there next to the others who built this place from nothing. A maintenance guy was on a step stool, unscrewing my picture. Hadn't even waited until I was out of the building. Something in me snapped for a second. I actually took 2 steps toward him before I caught myself. Told myself, don't. Not here. Not like this. I just stood there instead, jaw tight, and watched a stranger take my face off the wall while I was still close enough to see it happen. I went back to Elaine's office. Didn't yell, though it took everything in me not to. Just said, "I gave this company 15 years, my father's funeral week, my son's childhood, and you couldn't wait 1 more hour to take my picture down." She didn't have an answer, just that same tight, apologetic smile that means there's nothing I'm willing to do. I didn't know it then, but that smile cost her something too. Security walked me out. Box in my hands, past people I'd hired, past people I'd trained, none of them able to look at me. 2 days later,
Severance delayed pending review, a parting shot on the way out the door. I sat in the car for 20 minutes before I could turn the key. Telling Denise was harder than the meeting. She didn't say much at first, just sat next to me on the couch, took the folder of severance paperwork out of my hands and said, "Okay, so we figure it out. Together." That was the first night in weeks I actually slept. Telling Nate was harder still. He was 12, old enough to understand, let go, young enough to ask, "But Dad, you built that place. How do they fire you from something you built?" I didn't have a good answer.
The weeks after didn't play out like a highlight reel. Applications sent into silence. One recruiter told me flat out, "Honestly, 15 years at one company reads as a red flag now. 15 years of loyalty, and I was being punished for it twice." Denise kept the house running while I kept refreshing my inbox, some nights running numbers at the kitchen table long after everyone else was asleep. One of those nights, I wasn't even looking for anything important. Denise had asked me to clean out the garage, old boxes from 3 job changes, tax documents, warranty cards for appliances we didn't own anymore. I almost pitched an entire folder straight into the recycling. Old vendor paperwork, I figured, from back before Hallbrook had a real legal department. Something made me flip through it first. There it was. A licensing agreement from 2014, the routing and inventory system I'd built myself on my own laptop before I was technically a manager, before Hallbrook even had in-house counsel, never formally transferred, still, on paper, mine. I sat on the garage floor and read it twice, sure I was misunderstanding something. I called a friend from college who was a lawyer just to check I wasn't crazy. He read it, went quiet for a second, and said, "Callum, if this is still active and nobody amended it, this thing runs the company's operations, and legally, they don't own it." I didn't do anything with it right away. I just sat with it, quiet, like a card I wasn't ready to play. Instead, I started small, a startup in Austin, a distribution company in Tennessee. Word spread. Within a couple months, I had 5 clients, my own footing again. No wall to fall off of this time. One evening, Nate came into my office after I finished a call, waited, then said, quiet, almost shy, "Dad, you smile again." I hadn't realized how long it had been since I had one to give him. Music. Subtle shift here, soft, uncertain undertone bleeds in, something unresolved building beneath the calm. 6 months after I walked out of Hallbrook with a cardboard box, my phone rang. Columbus area code. Trevor. His voice was careful, rehearsed, polite. "Callum, hey, listen, we've hit a situation. We could really use your help." 6 months earlier, this man watched my photo come off a wall and called it best for everyone. Now he needed me. Hallbrook was closing a major funding round, the kind of money that would take them national. During due diligence, the investors' legal team found a hole. The routing and inventory system running half the company's operations was still tied to that 2014 agreement, mine. Without my signature, the deal was frozen. Rebuilding from scratch would cost them the round entirely. I let the silence sit. 6 months ago, you couldn't wait to see me gone. Now you can't survive without me. We set a meeting. My terms, my schedule. Walking back into the lobby felt different than I expected. I stopped at the wall, my old spot still empty. Nobody had bothered to fill it. 6 months earlier, I'd stood in that exact place and watched myself get erased. This time, I felt something closer to steady than angry. The conference room hadn't changed. Trevor, Elaine, 2 board members who looked considerably more nervous than either of them, and the lead investor, Priya Malhotra, sharp, quiet, taking notes the whole time. Trevor opened with the usual spin. "We value the relationship we built, Callum, and we'd love to find a path forward that works for everyone." Same phrase. Funny how it only shows up when it doesn't. I laid it out calmly. What the license meant,
what would happen to their funding if it wasn't resolved, what I expected in return. Trevor's composure slipped. "You're holding the company hostage over a photo on a wall?" "No," I said, keeping my voice level even though my hands weren't quite steady under the table. "I'm holding you accountable for erasing someone who built the floor you're standing on." He tried one more move, turned to Priya and said, "With respect, our technical advisors already reviewed that possibility, Mr. Ashcombe. Their estimate was 7 months minimum, with no guarantee of matching current performance. We don't have 7 months." Then she looked at me. "We're not comfortable proceeding without the person who actually understands this system running implementation. That means Mr. Reyes leads the transition. Reporting structure would need to reflect that." The room went quiet. Trevor's title didn't disappear, but for the next 18 months, the person deciding how the system he'd used to justify firing me actually got implemented was me. That's when Elaine finally spoke, and I understood the quiet folder she'd been keeping all along. She slid a printed email across the table before she even looked at Trevor. 6 months ago, Trevor told me removing Callum was a leadership decision, not personal. I want the board to see what he actually wrote to the operations team the week before. Right there, streamlined decision-making, reduced dependency on legacy personnel. His own words, saved by a woman who hadn't been ready to use them until she was sure. Trevor just sat there for a second, staring at the table. Then, quieter than anything he'd said all meeting, he looked at me and said, "You planned this?"
"No," I said. "You did." He didn't have anything after that. 2 weeks later, I heard he was let go. Same hallway, same lobby. I imagine somebody walked him past that wall too on his way out. A few weeks after everything settled, I went back one more time. My photo was up again. Same face, a little younger, a little less tired around the eyes. This was the 3rd time I'd stood in that exact spot. First time, it was where they erased me. Second time, it was where I took the power back. This time, it was just peace. That night at dinner, Nate asked how my day was. I told him it was good. Told him some things take longer to fix than others, but they still get fixed. Denise reached over, squeezed my hand under the table, and said, "I told you we'd figure it out." She was right. She usually is. They thought removing my picture would erase 15 years. They forgot something. Foundations don't disappear just because someone paints over them. If this one hits you the way it hit me writing it, hit subscribe right now, share it with someone who's ever been shown the door after giving everything, and tell me in the comments, would you have taken Trevor's deal, or would you have made them wait like I did? I'll see you in the next one.